Representative O'Neill.
All right.
Mr. Punctual, thank you for being on time.
It's on. Great. Thank you very much, Chairman Fonfera, France, Rojas, Ranking Member Davis, and members of the Finance Committee. The House Republican Caucus would like to thank you for hearing House Bill number 6558, an act establishing Social Security benefits, exempting Social Security benefits from the personal income tax, and 6556, an act establishing a credit against the personal income tax for long-term care insurance premiums. For the record, my name is Arthur O'Neill. I'm a state representative, and I'm here to testify on these two important House caucus proposals. Both of these bills are being put forth in an effort to help create a more hospitable climate for senior citizens in our communities. The first bill I would like to address is 6558, an act exempting Social Security benefits from the personal income tax. The House Republican Caucus is pleased to see that after a number of years of putting this proposal forth, and I believe it goes back at least till 2005, so it's going on 12 years, it has gained the support from other caucuses. Connecticut has long been known as an expensive state in which to retire, and over the years we have done little to combat this perception. Exempting Social Security benefits from the income tax will provide extra money to those seniors living on fixed incomes. Senior citizens who decide to retire in other states will often blame Connecticut's high cost of living. While this bill does not address all of the issues that cause seniors to leave it, it will do a small part to help those who do not have the financial means to relocate and must live here on fixed incomes. I'll also say that I've been promoting this, I think, even longer than the Republican caucus, because I happen to have the most senior citizen-heavy district in the State House of Representatives. The second bill that I'd like to speak about is House Bill 6556, an act establishing a credit against the personal income tax for long-term care insurance. Long-term care insurance covers services that typical health insurance policies do not cover without considerable out-of-pocket expenses. Long-term care insurance will typically cover an individual from the first day of need, enabling seniors to avoid having to spend down their savings in order to receive government-subsidized care. Typical long-term insurance policies cover home care, assisted living, hospice care, nursing homes, and in-home nurses. Long-term care is becoming a more popular product as people live longer and are in need of more care later in life. Financial professionals are starting to recommend including long-term care insurance as part of one's retirement planning. Creating a tax credit will help encourage and raise awareness about long-term care insurance. This proposal might cost money in the short term, but it can eventually save the state money by reducing the need for seniors to rely on government programs. There are many senior members of our communities who would prefer to stay in Connecticut, but feel the need to move due to a number of these issues. These two bills do not address all the issues that we are facing and that encourage people to leave Connecticut, and I urge the Finance Committee to consider these bills, and I would welcome any input in improving these proposals with the goal of a friendlier environment for seniors. So, happy to answer any questions about either of these proposals.
Thank you, Representative O'Neill. I'm not sure how many bill proposals we received, but it was well in excess of 20 on this subject. So maybe this time around, this idea will come to fruition, and I certainly applaud it. My name is on it as well, as everybody else's. We've combined it into one bill, obviously, or actually two, I think, but we'll combine those eventually. Representative, do you have any statistics as to the seniors that might be leaving Connecticut and any sort of anecdotal evidence that they're leaving because of the tax on Social Security?
I don't have statistics. I think that would be difficult to tease out, especially the motivation. I can tell you some anecdotes based on my own experience with my own district, and that is standing out in front of a grocery store during an election campaign time, talking to people, handing them my campaign brochure, and having people say things like, "I think you're doing a terrific job," and then I say, "So you're going to vote for me?" And the person says, "Oh no, I vote in Florida. I moved last year." But you're doing a great job. And these are senior citizens, folks who have what is now a summer home in a place like Heritage Village, who used to be full-time residents who have decided, we've decided to move. And just conversations with people, that tax and Social Security, even if it's not make or break in terms of your finances, is almost like an insult in terms of the cost of it, having worked all those years and now receiving a relatively modest Social Security benefit, and that gets taxed. And that's something that I think it's one of those tipping point kinds of things, as far as feeling that that's it, and people would be motivated to leave. It's a complicated decision to make a decision to leave an area where you've lived a long time, but this is certainly one that is, I think, a contributing factor to people's decisions to leave.
Thank you for that answer, Representative. Any questions or comments from anybody on the committee? Chris Davis? Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative O'Neill, for speaking on both of these bills here today. If I could touch on the second bill that you talked about, the 6556, the establishing credit against the personal income tax for long-term care insurance premium payments. In your testimony, you talked about how, although it could be a short-term revenue loss, long-term it should save the state significant money by encouraging people to purchase this type of insurance. And I was wondering if you could expand upon it, how that would play out if people were to purchase this insurance and the savings for the state if they were to do so.
Sure. Well, the way long-term care insurance works, and I can't give it a primer. I'm not qualified either to be a tutor in long-term care insurance, but I do know a little bit. And the way it works is that basically if you become ill, not from normal medical, but it's a long-term kind of illness that's going to require either in-home care, which is increasingly where the money goes, or a nursing home stay. While Social Security picks up a little bit of it, I think it's 80% of the first 20 days and 20% of the next 80 days. If you're in a nursing home for any extended period of time, it's going to have to be paid for by some other source. It's not being paid for by anything at the federal level. So long-term, and what happens is people are then, if they don't have this insurance, they have to dissipate their assets. And we go through this rather difficult charade kind of thing that happens where people try to make themselves either artificially or in reality, but unnecessarily poor in hopes of qualifying for the Medicaid system so that they can enter a nursing home and all of their assets do not get eaten up by a stay in a nursing home, which today is in excess of $100,000 a year in many cases. So you buy one of these long-term insurance policies, and then what happens is you do not end up drawing down against the Medicaid program in the state of Connecticut. Also, people don't go through this, as I say, what I would call something of a charade to try to make themselves look poor and go through the elaborate legal jump through hoops and things, and you don't leave people destitute, either naturally or artificially destitute. So what it does is it would save us money in the Medicaid budget eventually as people buy these policies. Now, Connecticut has a very good policy. It helps as our statutes work, it helps people and encourages them to do this. But you really have to be very long-term in your thinking. One of the problems is that when you write out a check for $2,500 or $3,000 or $4,000, which is the kind of policy that people would have to buy for it to really be meaningful, that check is today. That means maybe you're not going to have enough money to buy a new car if you're relatively close in terms of your funding. It maybe means you don't do other things that you want to do. So if you give a tax credit, I would think that would offset, so that in that present moment when you're making the decision, do I buy this policy or not, you think, well, I've got a tax credit. And at least it's offsetting a little bit of the cost right now. Because what you're really doing by buying this policy is you're saving the state of Connecticut 10 or 15 or 20 years from now a lot of money, and you're saving yourself the craziness of this artificial destitution process that you go through. And or you're saving people, and you're encouraging people to stay here, because other states are a lot less expensive to deal with in this area.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for our witness? Thank you, Representative O'Neill. Go ahead. Representative. You too.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today. I know Connecticut has the Partnership for Long-Term Care, whereby certain policies allow you to shelter some of your income in case you spend down. How would this play into your plan, if at all?
Well, you're right. The partnership basically allows you to double the amount of coverage. It would shelter assets. So if you bought a $200,000 policy without the partnership, you would probably get $200,000 of coverage. And like I said, I'm not the expert in this, so I may be jumbling my facts a little bit. But what Connecticut basically allows you to do is to double up on how much you're going to avoid having to spend down, so to speak. And the way it works, as I mentioned before, is I think that it gives you a present-day incentive. The tax credit would give you a present-day incentive to do this, which in the long term is going to save the state of Connecticut a lot of money by avoiding the Medicaid expenditures of having someone in a nursing home at perhaps the cost of $100,000 per year. It would, I think, be an extra incentive, and it's in the present moment. I don't know how many psychological studies that I've read about where if you offer somebody $1 today versus $10 a week or a month from now, they usually grab the $1 today. People just maybe don't trust that the things are going to work out, that they're going to benefit unless they benefit pretty quickly. So I think it would help get more people into the program, which will then, in the longer term, save Connecticut a lot of money in this long-term care. And again, we have a very old population in Connecticut now. If people enter nursing homes in huge numbers, and when I say old, obviously, you buy this policy when you're in your 50s and perhaps, so we want people to start buying these policies now, because when they're in their 70s or 80s, it's going to cost us a lot of money to take care of them if they have to enter nursing homes, or we need to supply in-home care to them and that sort of thing.
Do you know what Connecticut is currently spending on that Medicaid, that portion of Medicaid in terms of long-term nursing home care and in-home assistance? And the other question is, do you know how many Connecticut residents currently purchase long-term care insurance?
I don't know the number of the people currently doing it. It's a relatively small percentage of the total population. And the numbers swim in my head sometimes, but I'm thinking in terms of Medicaid coverage. We're talking about I think it's about $1 billion of what we spend goes for Medicaid. Much of that goes for the folks that are in nursing homes. I mean, a lot of it goes to young families, but most of it goes to nursing homes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Senator Franz.
Thank you, Representative. Anybody else? Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Representative O'Neill.